Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked again? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something impossible, but when they spoke to a ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left you unsatisfied?
What's a
My
weather
name is
balloon?
Jack, and this is my colleague Chris, and we're senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect the same creatures from the world. Well, hello there, people. How are we doing today? And how are you doing, Chris?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. I can't believe I'm on the best podcast that was ever made. We have achieved incredible things here. There's only one way to go from here, and that is, of course, royalty, politics. We are announcing today that we will be an option in the election for king of a country that you can vote for, because we all know that you vote for kings. I'm not sure where this bit is going.
Neither do I, and frankly, I'm a little bit scared.
Rightfully so. What about you, Jack? How are you doing? Save this episode, please.
No, you've already killed it. No.
I know.
I'm doing well, thank you very much. I'm enjoying myself, and I've actually had a relaxing couple of weeks at work for once.
Ooh.
It's been quite nice.
That's a nice change of pace.
It really is, because normally they send me after disasters.
Yes. So what were you doing?
Yeah. So this week I have been in the Bahamas.
Ooh.
Would you believe? I know.
Who have you bribed? How much did it cost? I want to do the same thing.
I mean, I was working in the Bahamas.
Yeah, of course. Working.
Well, no, it was all part of... Yes, working. It was all part of that thing that I said a few weeks ago on my last episode, where for spring we prepare. You know, we've got like a bunch of things that we do for various creatures to just, you know, look after them, make sure they're okay, check the welfare, check the progress of the colonies. So I was able to finally jump back onto my spring schedule rather than having to go running off somewhere because the world is falling apart.
The world is still falling apart, but at least you don't have to run.
At least it's not my problem for a little bit. Yeah, but they've had me working with a creature that I don't know if I'd be surprised if you knew what it's called or if you wouldn't, but it's called the Chickcharney. Have you ever heard of it?
Is that a KFC item?
No, that's a zinger. Chickcharney.
Oh. Yeah, I have no idea what that is. Does it have anything to do with chickens?
No.
I'm disappointed and not interested anymore.
Well, it does have things to do with birds, but it's not chickens.
Well,
it is...
Slightly interested again.
Well, what it is it's a creature that looks very, very similar to an owl.
Okay. So how is it not an owl then?
Because this creature, it, number one, lives in Bahamas, which, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure there are some owls that live in the Bahamas. It's not that's the only place they go.
Yeah.
But
it's where they go for retirement.
Well, these ones, they appear to be able to influence a person's fate.
It sounds ominous. Also, it begs a lot of questions like, does fate exist? And what is free will if there's fate? And can we defy fate? What if our fate is to defy our fate?
Well, I mean, we're getting existential there.
Yes.
For a half-an-hour podcast. Let's move on. Yeah, they are... It's not so much that they define your fate, but it seems to be that they can influence how your life is going to kind of go in certain ways for the short term. But we'll get onto that in just a minute, because I'd assume you'd like to know what these fate-changing owls look like.
Yes, please. I bet they look very wise and dignified.
Well, they're very similar to what barn owls look like, except that these things
So
can
not.
grow up to about well, these ones can grow up to about 1 meter in height.
Ooh.
So they're quite big. Whereas, obviously, owls and things are covered in feathers, and it's very, very kind of obvious that they look like feathers. When you look at a Chickcharney for long enough, their feathers almost look a little bit like very kind of fine fur.
Okay.
Because they've got very, very fine feathers, almost like hair follicle type feathers. But obviously they are still feathers. But it just gives that impression of it being fur rather than a set of feathers.
Is it like those dinosaur proto feathers?
Similar kind of idea.
Huh. Interesting.
They also are a little bit more humanoid than owls tend to be.
What do you mean humanoid?
Well, images and things that people have drawn from, accounts that have come out show them to be kind of like very, very slender. They've been described as being elfin, in which that kind of, elf-like, very slender, very fine build.
Sure, they're twins.
God damn it. They are kind of like owlish, basically from the head down, but obviously, have you ever seen that kind of thing
everywhere.
where they... To a point! But have you ever seen, like, someone, like, a really, really wet bird, like owl or something like that?
Yeah.
You just see the legs and they're incredibly thin. Well, they obviously have that same similar, incredibly thin leg shape, but it's almost like the feathers stop just past the waist. So you can really see the legs.
Oh no.
They're very, very obvious.
I don't know if I could take them serious. The image that is forming in my mind is very ridiculous.
You better take them seriously, trust me, and I'll tell you why in a little while.
All right.
But the other thing about them is they have 3 fingers and 3 toes on each of their limbs.
Their fingers on their wings.
Well, when we say fingers, we're talking like talon-like fingers.
Okay.
But normally, a lot of birds will tend to have like 2 or 3 kind of at the front, and then like another one at the back to hold them in place on branches and things. These are a lot more. Well, they've just got the 3 that kind of stick out in front.
Okay.
Which is one of the little ways in which they kind of differ from normal owls, apart from being absolutely massive in comparison to normal owls. I don't know that many barn owls that are about 1 meter tall.
No, that's a pretty big owl.
Yeah, well, that's what I'd be thinking. They also have the same kind of ability of owls in that they can turn their heads 360 degrees. And
sure,
in the history, they have been described as having a prehensile tail.
That's not very owl-like.
Yeah, they don't always seem... They look like owls, but they don't seem to act like owls, which again is... It's probably a bit of camouflage, through evolution. They can hide in with groups of various creatures because they look like owls, rather than being something completely different.
Yeah.
The reason why they do a lot of climbing and a lot of moving in that way along the ground, rather than flying, though, is that they live in their nests that they create by tying 2 pine trees together at the top. That's how they create their nests.
Okay.
So they will literally bend the tops of pine trees together, tie them together, and that's how they make their homes.
Yeah, sure, why not? That seems needlessly complicated, but who am I to tell the human owl with a tail how to build their nests?
Well, that's the thing. They don't. So far, everyone I've ever interacted with doesn't have a prehensile tail. That's just a bit of a myth that kind of seems to exist. I think it's partially to try and describe how they climb so well, but they just do. They are just very, very good at climbing, and they move around their kind of habitat, mostly on the ground.
Okay, so flightless owl birds living in the trees. Okay, so what's the fate stuff all about?
So they are a very mischievous creature. They
Right.
also can be very, very aggressive if you don't treat them with respect, or or you damage their habitats or various things like that. They can be very vengeful if you do not give them the proper respect or the proper environmental conditions, or you try and damage their homes.
I mean, I would be vengeful if someone damaged my home.
They say that if you treat them with respect whenever you encounter them, they provide you good luck and good fortune. All the way through to it makes people, you get jobs that you want, things work out for you.
Okay.
We've only observed this in the short term when we sent wardens into, to deal with or to interact with Chickcharneys. Yeah, those wardens seem to, excel for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, that kind of thing. It seems to go well if we've sent them in to treat them with respect. If we've sent a warden in to annoy them as part of one of our experiments, however,
sounds like my specialty.
which is why I'm surprised you've not come across them. They can bestow poor luck on you and even induce hard times. Luckily, any wardens we've sent in to deal with them and experiment with them on this kind of good luck, bad luck side haven't suffered anything really, really awful. However, and I want to say this exactly how the kind of myths and the legends say it, because it feels euphemistic to me, but I think the end result is pretty obvious.
Can I just say before we move on that I'm kind of disturbed that we're just sending wardens as guinea pigs to annoy these fate birds. Sometimes this organization, well, let's not get into that.
We gotta know how it works.
I mean, do we though?
How else do we look after them properly? We need to know what they're going to do. If an animal breathes fire, we need to know how hot that fire is.
Yeah, but we don't usually measure that by putting someone in front of the fire with a thermometer.
Don't we?
Well, no, the person would get burned.
God, my time in the research department was not done properly.
I don't think so.
But as I was saying, euphemistically, they describe that if you annoy a Chickcharney enough, they will twist your neck all the way round violently and forcibly. That is quite literally, verbatim, how it is said in the myths and the legends. Every little bit of research we ever found says it with those exact words.
Yeah, that sounds like something you should send young wardens to just annoy the hell out of. What could possibly go wrong?
We never asked them to go that far into annoying them.
Well,
Just
how do you
mildly
know when
get on the
it's too
nerves.
far?
You work up to it and you take the warden away, and you work up and you take the warden away. And then when it gets to a point where maybe they're about to be killed.
Oh god.
This was early days.
I'm not gonna question this. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just the way in that every single bit of research that I found, every time I asked one of the research guys, that's the wording that they say, as if that doesn't kill you, as if they're not breaking your neck. It's just an odd way to say it, as if they're trying to not say it breaks your neck to kill you.
I mean, it would be kind of fun if it doesn't kill you. Just kind of spins your neck around and then you, I don't know, suffocate because your air tubes are twisted up. I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? But
what a nice creature.
I know. They are lovely, though. Generally, if you're kind to them, they're wonderful to be
Do
around.
they make you say that?
I am not under duress.
Blink twice if there's an owl with you. One of us might be secretly an owl.
Who knows who? Oh no!
Open fire!
Yeah, so the islanders, whenever they were moving around the pine forest, because they only live in pine forest, they will not live in any other type of forest.
Okay,
they
sure.
will only live in pine forest specifically.
How else would they build their nests?
Exactly. How else do you tie two pine trees together if there's no pine trees to tie together?
Exactly. Makes sense.
But the islanders and the locals, whenever they were going into or around the pine forest, or they thought they could potentially come across a Chickcharney, they would carry with them these brightly coloured flowers or cloths, because apparently Chickcharneys, you can charm them with bright colours.
Oh, I mean,
they just really, really like bright colours. So
yeah, I get it.
You move with them, and they'll be very, very calm and kind of humble around you. They'll just spend time with you rather than doing anything. You still have to, be careful and not annoy them. Otherwise, they'll give you bad luck, or potentially, if you annoy them enough, kill them. They're just very, very pleasant creatures if you respect them, just like you're supposed to respect nature.
What do you think on a scale from 1 to 360 degrees neck spin? Where does it come in if I laugh at their skinny owl legs?
I'm gonna say maybe 65 degrees.
Well, that's fine, I guess. I can work with that, depending on where we start and the direction, of course. Anyway, moving on.
So there is actually an interesting story about the Chickcharney, that one of the former Prime Ministers of England, Neville Chamberlain, was actually a victim of the Chickcharney.
Oh, how so?
Because many, 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 many years ago, obviously around when Neville Chamberlain was alive, he took up his father's plantation in the Bahamas, and upon arriving did a huge amount of land clearance. Like, they even describe it as being very rampant, going through, tearing down trees all over the place, which obviously, directly affected the Chickcharney's habitat and their homes and everything.
Sure.
And as a result, the islanders put down the fact that the plantation itself very swiftly failed and fell apart, and was, just the business completely failed, down to all of this, damaging of the Chickcharney's habitats. There is the chance that they can't just affect your fate for a short period of time, but quite a long time, because they put this down to one very, very vindictive Chickcharney, who obviously lost their home. That's why everything fell apart, as far as the islanders are concerned.
I mean, are we sure that's true, or is it just the new guy not knowing how to manage the plantation?
It's entirely possible it's the new guy not knowing how to manage the plantation, but still, it's an interesting idea that they might be able to directly affect your fate in this way. Like I say, it's always just better to treat them with respect and love and kindness rather than going and causing them issues.
Yeah.
So, no, we're not sending you over there to have a laugh at the legs.
Well, maybe better that way.
This is a bit of a success story for the CCI, though, in managing people's expectations and keeping these creatures well hidden from the public. Because we've actually tricked people into believing that they don't actually see Chickcharneys. They see a completely different form of owl called the Tytopollens. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, of course, as the resident owl expert. No, of course I haven't heard of it.
It's an owl that is related to the barn owl, so very similar.
Yeah.
Very large, about 1 meter in height, so again, very similar. And it's flightless. It basically lives on the ground. It doesn't go anywhere.
Just like me.
It doesn't even climb trees.
Okay.
So that's where it kind of differs, but again, people don't tend to notice that when they're just looking for an explanation. What we managed with this creature is to get people to believe that when they see a Chickcharney, they might see a Tytopollens, but it's hard to find a Tytopollens because they apparently went extinct in the 16th century.
Oh.
Now, obviously, because we've persuaded people to believe Chickcharney is a Tytopollens, it does mean that some people think there might be small colonies or small groups of the Tytopollens living out in the Bahamas, which it's entirely possible that there might be, some small remnants of the groups. Yeah. But it just means that we've been able to protect the Chickcharney from, hunters and people coming out trying to, improve their fates, because that's what people do when they hear things like that. And it's just kept them safe on their islands for so long.
Interesting.
But it does beg the question, are they related? Are they not related? Are these Chickcharney special, mutations of the Taito pollens? Who knows?
Do we know anything about how the mechanics of this works? About how they influence your fate? Because that seems pretty vague so far.
We're not too sure. I mean, the myths don't ever say anything about how they do it. They don't turn around and say that they, alter the strings of your fate, or, give you good fortune or something like that. So our research guys, they mostly think maybe it's a kind of mental influence thing on people who see them. Maybe there's something going on with brainwaves. We just think that it's something like it makes you feel good, makes you feel happy.
They're manifesting.
And yeah, that whole manifesting, which is why it stays in a short-term goal kind of thing. But we're not sure how to even start investigating that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah. I mean, I would love if there was just a completely mundane explanation, like they annoy your potential boss into not giving you the job or something.
They might do. Who knows? They might fly around the world and just go, I'm after this guy.
Yes.
He took
the
last pellet.
So petty that they do everything they can to make your life shit in the most invisible way possible.
But yeah, so that's kind of like the Chickcharney. And myself, I've been out there this last week or so, just checking up on the colonies that we've got over in the Bahamas. Before you, dear listeners, try and drag yourselves over to the Bahamas to see a Chickcharney, you won't get close. There are wardens, there are local authorities. They won't let you near their habitats. We know where they are. You're not getting in, plain and simple.
You'll never get them.
But they've sent me out there this year to just do the population check. So a few little health checks, make sure that everyone is make sure that the population is stable, not growing too much, but not not reducing too much either. Making sure that they're still all there. Make sure there's no diseases rampant through it. They've got enough food. They've got enough access to water. Just a general health check. So it's been quite nice. And in my equipment, instead of having to take, a dart gun to tranquilize something, or even an actual firearm to protect myself, or some kind of defensive weapon, I've been able to basically take coloured flags and some flowers and bouquets and
the bag of frozen mice as treats.
Well, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
There was a group of them that I was about 2 days in, just really, really enjoying spending some time with. They were hopping around. The colony was happy and healthy. Babies coming through. It was a wonderful example of a thriving society of these creatures.
Yeah, sounds great. Where's the catch?
Well, if you remember earlier, I said they're mischievous.
Yes.
And some places in the Bahamas, it can be difficult to get a signal.
Yes. So did they steal your phones?
Well, not quite my phone, but we still do some things on paper.
Yeah.
So I had my papers out, and I'll admit I'm not the most cleanest and organised guy while I'm out in the field with papers and absolutely everything everywhere. I prefer my computer or a laptop or something.
Yeah.
But they were just kind of laying there, and I had them set out, and I was doing some drawings and taking measurements and writing things down, all of that kind of stuff. And as I turned round, there was a big male in front of me as I turned around to go get a treat, to kind of get them away a little bit so I didn't annoy them or make them think that I was going to do anything by accident, reaching for a piece of paper, and it could misconstrue that as an attack or some kind. I don't know. It's wild creatures. It's easy for them to misunderstand.
Sure.
And when I turned round, all my papers were gone. There were about 30 bits of paper I'd been working on. It was an all-day job. I'd got so much data written down, and what I saw was basically this little one that had been hiding behind the big male and the little babies was just hopping away at high speed, just bounding away, heading towards one of the trees.
You know what? I like these birds.
Well, this one wasn't my friend, and part of me did think,
it's
you know
my
what? I've
friend.
never tasted Chickcharney. But I got up and I'm, trying to pursue it as quickly as I can, but without coming across as very aggressive, because the last thing I need is a load of bad luck here,
Yes.
or one of them trying to break my neck, which so far I'm not sure how they break your neck. They just seem to be able to, so maybe there is a magical aspect to them.
Or they're just very buff underneath the feathers.
Entirely possible. So I was, steadily catching up to this little one, and I don't know if an owl's face can emote well enough to, give you a wry smile. But this little one definitely was. It knew exactly what it was doing.
Yes. I mean, even normal owls, they are called the cats of the skies, so they're little bastards. They know exactly what they're doing.
But anyway, so I was getting close. I was nearly close enough, to quickly grab them and pull away.
Yeah.
And that's when it decided to start going up the tree. So it starts climbing up the tree, still with all my papers in its beak.
Yeah.
And I'm now having to go, I'm going to have to climb the tree, aren't I, now, to catch this one. So there I go. I start climbing the tree and hopping up and up and up and up. And I'm not a great fan of heights at the best of times.
Yeah.
Let alone when I'm not even got any equipment to anchor me in. And these are ancient pine forests. These are tall trees.
Yeah.
And their nests are at the top of them.
At this point, I think I would have just said, screw the papers, I'm doing this again.
I'd been working on it for 4 hours.
Well, still.
I was getting tired. As much as I like the Bahamas, it's hot. I don't do hot.
Well, you know what helps against that? Climbing a damn tree.
Well, I was climbing up to it, and I was, again,
Of course you were.
trying to climb up quickly, but also carefully and non-threateningly, which is a very odd thing to look.
Yes.
I can only assume that if someone was watching me from the floor, it probably looks very weird.
There's nothing less threatening than someone chasing you up a tree.
Either I was achieving it, or they were all in on the joke, because none of them were being aggressive towards me as a result of it. But we're getting up this tree, and we're about a meter away from the top, and I'm looking at it, and I'm reaching, just trying to get hold of my papers. Damn thing's got it in its mouth, and it's not like put them in the nest. It's just holding them above my head, and I'm reaching up, about to grab it, and it lets go. So all my papers flutter down.
I love it. I love these birds.
I then had to slide down the tree and spend the next hour walking around about half a mile of forest trying to pick up all of my papers. And when I got back to all my stuff and began to pack up, that's when the full extent of everything hit me. I realised the purpose behind all of this.
Yes.
They wanted the damn trees. They've stolen all of them.
Of course.
They'd gone in, opened the bag, taken all the treats, and left.
They're clever, huh?
Yeah. But, I mean, it beats, being attacked by red caps or trying to be crushed by leshies.
I guess. I mean, at least until you fall out of the tree, but...
Yeah, well, I was able to climb down. I mean, I won't lie, it took me about 15 minutes to climb down the tree. Not because it was a very, very difficult tree climb, but more to do with my legs were shaking the entire time.
Oh, God.
But, yeah. And, everything else went off without a hitch. I forced myself to find an internet connection, so I brought my tablet with me the next day and, kept hold of that thing like it was my life depended on it. And, just finished off our survey. came home a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
But that was my kind of experience with the Chickcharney, and so far I've been feeling pretty good. So who knows, maybe I got some good fortune from them.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, they gotta repay you somehow for the treats.
Oh, I'd hope they would.
Yeah, sounds like a nice vacation.
But do you know anywhere where people might like a nice vacation?
Well, if you are as broke as everyone because the economy is in shambles, you probably don't want to travel anywhere, and instead you just take a vacation digitally in our wonderful Blink and Your Mythic Discord. You'll find lots of rooms to stay in and channels to meet other people in that metaphor doesn't quite work. Anyway, you find people there. You can talk about episodes we have done about creatures this world has deemed unreal for far too long. You can suggest creatures for us to talk about, because between Jack and I, we have encountered a lot of things, and we can probably tell you more about them if you want us to, and we could probably talk your ear off again about owls, because we are owl experts here at Blink and Your Mythid. And yeah, exactly. There's owls everywhere. I don't know where I was, but anyway, join the Discord. You should have already done so. The next best time is today, etc., etc. So just hop on there and chill out. And of course, you can find it by clicking the link in the description, which I had almost forgot to mention because I am an idiot. Anyway, so while you're doing all of this, Jack, I think we have more homework for our listeners to do. What would that be?
Yes, well, we think you should flap down to the barn and start telling everyone all about our podcast and asking people to listen and to rate and follow and subscribe, like you obviously have, because you love this podcast so much.
If you don't, we might influence your fate.
Yes, we might be able to influence your fate. I can always go speak to the Chickcharneys again, see if they'll, I don't know, put...
Oh, I'm going to be influencing more directly.
It's gone from dating profile to, I don't know...
Speaking of dating, if you want to influence my fate...
Stop it! Stop it! But, yeah, so make sure you're leaving likes and follows and subscribes.
Juicy likes.
Ratings and absolutely everything. 5-star.
Love those ratings.
If you didn't like this one, well, who cares?
The stars,
don't go,
all
don't
of
go
the
near
stars.
it. And if you would prefer to watch this podcast,
yes.
Not that you'll see our lovely faces. No. If you would prefer to watch this podcast but not actually see our lovely faces, but stare at our logo, or just because you prefer the old YouTube
sounds so enticing
thing. Trust me, the logo is better than our faces.
We need better marketing people for this podcast, I think.
Well, you can help us to get better marketing people by making this more popular.
Exactly.
So we can pay someone.
So we can get rich. I promise it'll trickle down. This time it'll work.
We have a YouTube channel where we put these videos up as well, so you can listen on YouTube if you don't really like using podcast apps or any of that kind of thing. But yeah, apart from that, in the meantime, I think there's only one thing left to do, and that is to say goodbye. So thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
Call me.
God damn it. Just why?